Hi folks, my name is Andrew Nieto. I am a candidate in Salt Lake County Republican Party for Secretary. This is Vincent Wetzel. He is the current Communications Director of Utah Log Cabin Republicans and a past Executive Director of the College Republicans at the University of Utah. We are going to be doing 10 questions, all of which were selected by Vincent and none of which were told me prior to arrival today. Let's go ahead and start.
Hey Andrew, so what got you interested in running for this position?
Well, I've been in Republican politics for quite a long time now, Utah politics since 2014, and Salt Lake County, I've been a resident and watcher since 2014. So I've been keeping an eye on the trends of the Salt Lake County Republican Party and the Utah Republican Party over the past 3 to 4 election cycles. And we started out strong when I was first here, and then we didn't because of contention. People who had very disagreeing ideas of what the party should be doing didn't listen to each other, and we lost a lot of our ability to get things done. And that had its collateral effect from the top down. So now the grassroots is losing its confidence. And the confidence of the grassroots is the absolute power of any organization, especially in politics. So I chose the office of secretary because one of the most significant collateral effects of all of that contention has been communication. I am currently a precinct chair as well as a county and state delegate, and I've had to go back and have my credentials recertified multiple times. I have not received the emails that I ought to have received. The website has been slow in being updated, and honestly, I don't blame current Secretary Reed Taylor for any of that. He's done the best he can. COVID has hurt a lot, but really the problem has been the bureaucracy. We have a lot of good volunteers, and we also have a lot of people that their intentions are not the best. And that bureaucracy has caused a really bad problem with communication. And that's why I want to run, because I have the skills and the know-how and the ability to learn from other people to make sure that this communication gets done. Because ultimately, communication at both the state level and at the county level is at the lap of the secretary. And that's my impetus for running.
Alrighty. So you talked about being involved as a state and county delegate. Let's just fill that out on the resume. What other ways have you been involved with the party? Like campaigns, auxiliary groups? Is there anything else in there you want to talk about?
So most of my hardcore experience, if you will, was back in California, in the 36th District, Assembly District Republican Party. Volunteering at campaign headquarters events, volunteering at the Republican booth at the Avon Valley Fair, doing phone calls for candidates. Here in Utah, I have been involved to a degree with nonprofit organizations such as Americans for Prosperity, doing phone calls on legislation for them. And really my initial introduction into Utah politics was as a college student up in Ogden. I came here first off to attend Weber State University, and they have when I was there anyway, they had a really good campus Republican program. And I got kind of sucked right in by the people that mentor college students, and they showed me the workings of the Weber County Republican Party. They introduced me to incumbent politicians and gave me really good, I don't want to call it special treatment, but they were very accommodating, such as at the Lincoln Day dinner and at candidate town halls and such, making sure that people understood I was new to the state and I wanted to learn. And that was my initial introduction. So more recently, I was a ground level volunteer for Mike Kennedy for Senate, U.S. Senate, and Kim Coleman for Congress.
Okay. Who inspires you?
People who promote civility, ultimately. Lack of civility, like I mentioned in an earlier question, really is the thing that is hurting the party right now. And some of the best examples are, I've got lots of people that I admire from around the world, from history. Pope John Paul II, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Gandhi. But in terms of U.S. history, other than Martin Luther King, the buck stops at the top. And even though I'm not running for a top-level office, the lessons still apply. George Washington, he did have a nasty temper in camp, admittedly. But in politics, he was an ultimate statesman. Mm-hmm. And Calvin Coolidge, not only did he inherit a horribly corrupt system from Warren Harding, but he said very little and he just got it done. I'm not a man of few words, but I still consider him one of my exemplars. Ronald Reagan would be obvious. I live and die by the 80% rule. As a Republican, how can I not mention Abraham Lincoln? Yeah.
It's a pretty good list. You get brownie points, by the way, for mentioning Coolidge. That's when you know someone knows what they're talking about. So, the secretary role in the party, it's not the top role, but it is an officer position or a leadership experience. So, talk about some past leadership things that you've been involved in.
So, really, a lot of my lessons were when I was a Boy Scout. I did make it all the way up to Eagle. I was involved in the Order of the Arrow as a chapter chief and as a lodge treasurer. So I've had parliamentary experience in organizations through that end. And of course, my Eagle project involved a lot of planning, as it's supposed to, and gathering people together and making sure that the right things are being done by the right people. So I did learn a lot of leadership lessons from the Scouts. I also participated as a high school senior in Lancaster Youth in Government. Lancaster, California, they have a program annually where high school juniors and seniors get to be the city for a couple months. And quite literally, Lancaster uses the Youth in Government program as its beta. They give them actual projects to work on. And so I was able to participate in that, see the inner workings of the city. And in terms of direct leadership experience, I'm pretty new in that. I'm eager to apply the lessons that I have learned from leadership experiences when I was younger. And in order to be a leader, you gotta run around the bases in the system you want to lead, and that's what I've been doing for the past several years.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me a bit about the platform. What do you see as your role in promoting the platform? Is there, some positive changes that you'd like to make to it? What's your relationship with the platform, and how do you see that with your role here?
Ultimately, promoting the platform mostly goes to the chair and the vice chair. They're the ones that are in the positions that they'll be dealing with the public, with the media. Secretary is overwhelmingly an internal position. Mm-hmm. Right now, the platform is not my focus because I need to be able to focus on precisely what needs fixing right now. And I don't 100% agree with the platform, but at the moment there's nothing in it that I want to change that would strengthen the party, to put our resources and effort into promoting that change. And ultimately that's what the platform is all about, is picking our causes that we can strengthen ourselves when we rally around them. So really when it comes to the promoting the platform, my job is to help the chair and the vice chair do that.
So, as you laid out, secretary's role is pretty administrative and internal and stuff like that. It's pretty straightforward for the most part. Is there any change that you could see yourself bringing to that role, or is most of it just a matter of being able to competently execute it?
So the two main things that I can see contributing, first of all, the secretary obviously is a member of the executive committee. So I will be a voting member of the Salt Lake County Republican Party Executive Committee, so I will have a role in the county's decision making. So in the sense that a legislator goes with their fellows to get things done, that's what I'll do. I'll use my status as a voting member of the executive committee to, ultimately my biggest focus is communication. You can't have grassroots without communication. It has to go to the right people with the right information at the right time. And people need to know, whatever level they're at, from precinct on up to top, that their role matters. And they need to know what their role is, and they need to know what the resources are that are applicable to their role. And that's where the party currently has fallen short, and that is another of the big reasons I'm running. Because as a precinct chair, I've seen it. I know what I need, and I know what I don't have, and I want to provide that to other precinct chairs.
So a lot of what you're doing is reaching out to the people who say that they want to be involved and make sure that they aren't
Right, absolutely.
participating and stuff like that.
Bottom-up approach.
So how does that apply during COVID? I mean, we all want this to be over as soon as possible, but the truth of the matter is that we're all still operating a little bit differently. And I think that the party did struggle with that. You could probably speak to that a bit in the last election. And there's a potential that that might be a concern going forward. Let's say that it is. What ideas do you have for addressing that sort of thing where it's like, okay, we might not be back to normal, and how can you innovate with your role or do whatever it takes to make things work during a pandemic?
So there's actually two real-world examples of high success during the pandemic. Both of them hit the ground. You cannot do politics without the ground game. You can't. Joe Biden won the presidency by sheer dumb luck without his ground game. And I guess this also speaks to my leadership experience. I don't mention it much because the organization is strictly nonpartisan, but I am a founding member of the 2019 Utah tax referendum. I am the one that set up the Facebook group that is the backbone of its, I don't want to say lobbying, but it's lobbying power. And we had, during the primary, a 50% election success rate in our supported candidates. We didn't do the ground game, the candidates did. All that we did, and this was my big lesson in the grassroots, the only thing that we did was let them get their message out. We established a culture in our group, which by the way has 26,000 members. No kidding.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So 26,000 members with a daily visitation rate of around 3,000. Your average post will get about 1,000 visitors in a day. So we're still a very active group, and all we do is provide information, and we enforce a culture of civility. That's our power, civility, and that's what got us a 50% success rate. The other real world example, and it worked exactly the same way, was the county council. We now have a supermajority Republican on the Salt Lake County Council, and that is because these candidates got together, worked together, pooled their resources, and they let the people of Salt Lake County know that the people of Salt Lake County were their priority. They went to the people. The thing that surprised probably everybody is that people appreciated having candidates go door to door, even though it's a pandemic. You can still stand 6 feet apart, going door to door. So, no matter what happens, and goodness sakes, COVID, a pandemic, that happened to everything and everyone. No matter what happens, you have to go to the people. And that's what the grassroots is. That's what the Republican Party is. And that's what I want to do as secretary.
So talk about the GOP lately. What's a missed opportunity that you see with the party where we could have done something better, but we didn't?
Bureaucracy, honestly. Our current leadership, now I am going to say straight up, I have nothing but praises for our state level leadership over the past 2 years. They have done everything that was right, that was done wrong in the previous term. At the county level, since Salt Lake County, let's just call it for what it is the backbone of the Utah Republican Party. So Salt Lake County, the problem is that we have capable, well-meaning leadership that gets a little bit too focused on a handful of principles. And as admirable as sticking to those principles is, you have to have balance among all of your principles. You got to remember what they all are and then balance them. And because of that excess focus, we've had too much bureaucracy. You hear our leadership praising ad nauseum their volunteers, and rightfully so. The volunteers of the Salt Lake County Republican Party have been phenomenal. But individual abilities and intentions aside, it is a bureaucracy. And that has hindered what we could have accomplished. We could have accomplished, it looks like we accomplished a lot, and we did, but goodness sakes, we didn't even scratch the surface of what could have been if we had not let that bureaucracy effect take too much hold.
Mm-hmm. So talk about growth. How do we bring more people into the party?
Presently, we can't. Our messaging has been off. We've already soured the grapes. But what we can do, and this, I speak of the grassroots ad nauseum. Person-to-person power sweetens this most sour grape. It's as simple as that. So what we got to do is we got to restore confidence in our grassroots, the people that are the grassroots. They need to know that they matter and that what they do matters. They need to know that they're valued and that they will be provided everything that they need. And as that happens, they will become more confident. They will become more passionate. Confidence and passion are contagious. I actually have that as one of the core themes in a lot of my candidate statements. Passion is contagious. So when we activate the grassroots, when we get the precinct chairs and the delegates to know, and not just know that they matter, but they need to know what their jobs are. That's one of our biggest problems right now is people don't know what they're supposed to do. At the most recent County Central Committee meeting, people were complaining about debating two amendments. And we had a lot of people leave the room. Now, I don't blame them for that. That's latent frustration from all the contention that we've been talking about. But what we can do, and the Secretary has a huge role in this, because it just has to be communicated. We need to educate our grassroots on what the legislative process is, that the nitty-gritty matters. And if we can get our grassroots to understand that, they will embrace it. I trust them that they will. We have good people. They just need to know what their goodness is for. And that, over time, getting our structure back together, getting the grassroots, that person-to-person grape sweetening is what will grow our party.
So there's a lot of dividing lines in the GOP right now, whether it's locally in Utah, something like SB 54, or even with the national party, there's a lot of disagreements about what is the future of the Republican Party. some people say they want President Trump to run again for another term, other people want the party to move on. There's tons of disagreements in tons of different ways. How do you see yourself navigating that? You know, in your role as secretary, you may have circumstances where, you know, people start yelling at you about all sorts of things. How do you bridge divides?
I'll take the yelling. I'll take it. As long as I'm doing my job properly, getting the word to where it needs to be, when it needs to be. Come at me all you want. All I gotta do is get my job done.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's all I've got for you today, Andrew. Thanks for answering all my questions.
Well, thank you for hosting me and taking the time to ponder the questions that you wanted to ask me. I always appreciate knowing what people want from me. As secretary, as any office that I would run for, I want to know what the people voting for me want from me.
So if people had follow-up questions, you know, how do they get in touch with you? How do they get more information?
My email is my name, Andrew G. 2005, Andrew G 2005 @gmail.com. Message me up, I'll answer. I'm an open book and ready to take questions from anybody that wants to ask.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Vince.